Recording. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our presentation on women and middle adulthood. It's an age cohort presentation by Stacy Plichta Keller, Bonnie Rabil, and Elise Reecer. Middle adulthood is a time of significant reinvention, challenges, and changes for women. It typically starts at around age 40 and goes through age 60, although it can start earlier and end later depending on personal and cultural factors. The central theme of middle adulthood for women is reassessment and reinvention. In this stage, many women will engage in a reevaluation of their goals, in part based on their current skills, achievements, and circumstances. It is also a time when many women face challenges to overcome, including those related to role expectations, physical changes related to menopause and aging, and career and future planning and retirement concerns. Erickson discusses this stage as generativity versus stagnation, with the primary virtue of caring. However, it might more be aptly named generativity versus exhaustion. The critical challenges at this age are managing the balance of life tasks, family responsibilities, work, and health changes. These include caregiving, often for parents and children at the same time, adjusting to new roles such as empty nester, grandmother, career growth or career stagnation, loss and grief, the loss of parents, the loss of pets, the loss of a job, divorce, physical changes such as menopause and aging, and preparing financially and emotionally for late adulthood and retirement. There are many role challenges for middle adult women, including role overload, when too many demands are made on a person at once, role conflict, when the demands of different roles are in direct opposition to one another, and role spillover, when the demands of one role may conflict with the demands of another. In order to help illustrate the counseling challenges and opportunities of middle adulthood for women, we'd like to introduce you to our client, Marie, and show you some of clips with therapy with her. Marie is a 46-year-old Italian-American Catholic woman who is married with 2 kids. Her 12-year-old son has some learning disabilities, which take much of Marie's time and attention. He's also involved with the marching band. Her 14-year-old daughter is involved in many school activities. These activities all come with an expectation of parental involvement, such as driving, providing snacks, and usually this falls on the mom. In Marie's community, her mom lives nearby, but she's alone, somewhat disabled, and needs help with tasks like shopping and making and getting to medical appointments. Marie is her main support. Now, Marie's in-laws are local, and they love to take the grandkids for the weekend, but they don't enforce any rules or expect the kids to do their homework. Marie's husband is generally a nice guy, but he's somewhat traditional and regards work inside the house as a woman's job. He is not violent, and he's never forced sex, although he will pout when Marie says no. Marie and her husband both work full-time. She's expected to attend church each Sunday and to provide a big Sunday dinner at her house afterwards. So Marie's counselor decides to start with a person-based approach. The person-centered approach is also known as Rogerian or client-based therapy, and it was founded by Carl Rogers and is based on his assumption that people are essentially trustworthy, that they have a vast potential for understanding themselves and resolving their own problems, and that they are capable of self-directed growth. The approach rejects the idea that the therapist is the authority who knows best, and instead encourages the client to take control of their own journey towards healing and self-awareness. This is accomplished through the creation of a growth-promoting environment that includes congruence, unconditional positive regard, and empathetic understanding. Let's watch now as Marie and her counselor talk.
Hi, Marie. So can you tell me what's going on this week? Oh my God. Well, what has not been going on this week? As usual, I am torn in what feels like a million different directions. It never stops. Sun up to sundown. It's the kids who either need me to fix them something to eat or drive them somewhere. And my mom, I mean, God bless her, but she's got the diabetes and that heart condition. So there's these doctor's appointments and she's got more house than she can take care of. And I don't know. It's just, at least it's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing you on your kids and your mom. What about your husband, Gary?
Well, my husband. Well, he's a man. So he works his 9 to 5 and he comes home and he eats dinner that of course I have prepared. He puts his feet up and then he expects sex at the end of all of that. And let me tell you, at least I'm just not in the mood. For one thing, I'm absolutely exhausted. And for another thing, it just feels like one more thing that's expected of me. And that's just not sexy.
I think you're on mute, Stacey.
So we just saw the first approach, which is the person-based approach. And the next approach we're going to watch is feminist-based therapy. The feminist therapy is an integrative approach to psychotherapy that focuses on the challenge women face as a result of bias, stereotyping, oppression, discrimination, and other factors, and how those stressors can negatively affect their mental health. It is based on the belief that an individual's wellness is linked to their social identities and to the political environment in which they live. Some of the key tenets of feminist therapy include the equal relationship between the client and the therapist. This models for the woman having personal agency in other relationships. Another tenet is teaching women to look for their own strengths and use them effectively, to understand the dynamics, power dynamics involved in relationships and gender roles, to view their problems in a social context. Additionally, feminist therapy teaches women about socialized depression. So let's watch in this next clip where Elise and Marie take a feminist approach.
So I hear you talking about Gary and your mom and your kids and being exhausted by it all. Why do you think you're stuck doing all this work as the caregiver?
Well, I mean, is there another way? I mean, I think just what we've always done. I mean, I grew up watching my mom do it, and Gary grew up watching his mom do it, and now it's just what I do. And really come to think about it, I don't think we've ever even discussed what I do and what he does and who should do what. We certainly don't talk about helping each other out at all. So I don't know. It's just kind of how it's always been.
Well, our society tends to rely really heavily on and expect women to be the caregiver for kids, for parents, for the partner or the spouse. And it sounds like you've been socialized to believe that you're the only person who has to take on this role as a caregiver and supporter. And then you end up feeling crushed by these things. But I think we should take a moment to recognize and see how society has normalized these gender roles for you guys. That you're the one shuttling the kids around and prepping meals and doing laundry and helping with schoolwork and driving your mom, going to doctor's appointments. Your worldview has just been subconsciously shaped by masculinity and patriarchal constructs of femininity, but it ends up suffocating you. How do you cope with your competing responsibilities?
Uh, Lately, if I'm being honest, first name Pinot, last name Noir. I mean, that's what I do. I get my wine time at night, and I guess that's really how I've been coping.
Okay, so in that brief clip, we learned a little bit more about Marie's life. And let's just review some of the issues that Marie is facing as a middle adult woman. First, she's facing issues of being in the sandwich generation and having caregiving stress. Middle-aged adults, more often women, often have caregiving responsibilities to both parents and children. They are often pressed for time, feel stressed. Guilt, burnout, depression, isolation are all found at elevated levels in this group. Another challenge that this group faces is sexual dysfunction. A woman's sexual well-being is an important determinant of her quality of life. But in midlife, studies show that women who report being sexually active also almost all report sexual dysfunction. In part, this is due to the declining hormone levels that bring on menopause, the end of fertility. These declining hormone levels can bring about symptoms such as low desire, low arousal, infrequent orgasms, vaginal dryness, and pain from penetration. At the same time, middle age can also be some of the most sexually fulfilling years for a woman due to the experiences she has with her own body. The third issue that came up, and it didn't come up in the first early on, as sometimes issues of alcohol use disorder and substance use disorder do not come up immediately, was alcohol use disorder. This is a pattern of alcohol use that involves problems controlling drinking, being preoccupied with alcohol, or continuing to use alcohol even when it causes problems. This disorder also involves having to drink more to get the same effect, or having withdrawal symptoms when someone stops drinking or cuts down their drinking. Unhealthy alcohol use also includes any use that puts health or safety at risk or causes other alcohol-related problems. In 2020, 9% of women had an alcohol use disorder. Nearly half of all adult women report drinking alcohol in the past 30 days, and 13% of women report binge drinking, which for a woman is drinking 4 or more drinks in one sitting. So why are women drinking so much and so often? People who drink to cope have a higher risk of developing alcohol use disorder, and women are more likely to drink to cope than men. Statistically, women are more likely to experience childhood sexual abuse or sexual assault than men. And in recent years, studies have found that rates of depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and suicide are climbing among women. Further, marketing alcohol to women is now the norm. Alcohol is often called mommy's little helper, and it's presented as part of a luxury lifestyle, synonymous with having a good time and as a tool to reduce stress. An expert in alcohol research, Catherine Keyes, a professor of epidemiology at Columbia University, said, if you look at who is binge drinking the most, it's women in midlife. One approach to helping people with alcohol use disorder is cognitive behavioral therapy. In treating alcohol dependence, CBT has 2 main components: functional analysis and skills training. During functional analysis, a therapist might ask client questions designed to gain insight into how a person was thinking or feeling before they engaged in the behavior. The therapist might ask the client to recall the last time they drank and then ask, what were you doing right before you drank? How were you feeling? Did anything positive happen as a result of the drinking behavior? And what were the negative consequences of those actions? By understanding what happens before and after substance use or misuse, people can begin to look for healthier ways to manage their difficult thoughts, emotions, or situations. The second component, skills training, works in 3 ways. It helps individuals unlearn old habits and develop new, healthier habits. It educates people about ways to change about how they think about their alcohol use, and it creates opportunities to learn new ways to cope with the situations and circumstances that led to drinking episodes in the past. Substituting old habits that contribute to substance use with more positive and enduring actions enhances a person's ability to function and aids in long-term recovery. Now let's go back and see how Marie and Elise are doing.
So Marie, how are you feeling when you're drinking?
Um, when I'm drinking, everything just goes kind of quiet. I mean, I feel kind of numb and just checked out.
Do you notice anything positive that happens as a result of your drinking?
Well, I mean, in the moment, not thinking about everything I have to do feels like a positive. It's also nice that whatever I have not gotten done on my very long to-do list, like it doesn't bother me so much.
Mhm.
I guess really when I'm drinking, I'm so checked out that nothing really bothers me at all. And so, at that time, that feels like a positive.
And what about any negative consequences of your drinking?
Well, I mean, it all comes crashing back the next day. So whatever I wasn't bothered about, now I'm bothered again. Plus, I feel guilty because I drank a bottle of wine or two. I wonder if my kids, notice. And Gary, I know he has to notice. So yeah, so I mean, I have like on the one hand that positive feeling of being kind of checked out, but it doesn't last. And then I just feel worse and I feel, even more tired and worse physically than I did before. Just kind of a cycle.
Okay. So we've seen that women in middle-aged adulthood face a complex set of challenges with much variation between women. And there's no best approach. No single approach is likely to fully serve women well. Counseling approaches may need to help women with many tasks, with the task of reassessing their lives and aspirations, with the task of tackling the challenges of multiple roles, with the task of adapting to physical changes, with future planning, and in setting future life goals. However, despite the need for counseling, many women in this life stage often face significant barriers to participation in therapy and therapeutic interventions, as we can see in this next clip.
So I think it would be beneficial for us to set up another time to chat. When would you like to meet again?
Well, I mean, my calendar is so packed. I told you that little Gary has band practice every afternoon. Gina has been elected to a leadership position, secretary of her multicultural club, and I am so proud of her. But my God, I have no time.
I hear you on that, and I'm happy to work with you to make a time work. But is there anybody in your life that could help you with the kids so that you could come to your appointment?
Well, so to be honest, I haven't told Gary that I'm still seeing you. I told him about that first time. But when I told him, I mean, I swear he looked at me like maybe I was going crazy. And so I definitely don't want to tell my mom. I don't want to tell my in-laws. I mean, I feel like I can just hear what they're going to say. Don't go airing your dirty laundry out to everybody. I mean, I just not comfortable with that. I'm just not comfortable with that yet.
So as we've seen, women in middle adulthood face many barriers to seeking counseling. Two of those barriers are time and stigma. Time poverty for women is a global problem. Even in what we think of as developed areas such as Europe and North America, as this chart shows, women put in a lot more unpaid work each day than men. This additional work leaves women with a chronic shortage of time and makes it very difficult for them to take care of themselves with therapy and with the accompanying work that is part of therapy. Another barrier is stigma. It can be really difficult to shift a client's mindset about the stigma of mental health and of asking for help. Studies have found that stigmas associated with mental illness, stigma being defined as the devaluing, disgracing, and disfavoring of someone by the general public often prevent people from seeking treatment. On the one hand, a person's own beliefs about mental illness can prevent them from acknowledging their illness, seeking help, or sticking with treatment. On the other hand, the risk of facing discrimination in social, cultural, and professional circles also creates a huge barrier to seek treatment. People may fear that family and friends will avoid them or treat them differently, or that disclosing a mental health condition will lead to adverse treatment and perceptions at work. Additionally, there are cultural considerations that need to be taken into account when treating women in middle adulthood. Middle adulthood can be a challenging part of life, but not everyone experiences it the same. For example, attitudes towards menopause differ across cultures. Even the point at which a woman reaches middle age or is viewed as having reached middle age can vary widely across cultures. In Western societies, women face a youth-obsessed culture that sees the start of middle age as earlier for women than for men, but also sees the start of middle age as undesirable. In other cultures, achieving middle age is viewed as a positive thing, and positive changes can take place for women, particularly in non-Western cultures. For instance, women may be freed from a variety of restrictions, given more authority, and have more opportunities for achievement and recognition beyond the household. And the idea of what generativity is, what is sharing our knowledge, what is supporting the future, also varies greatly between cultures. So, in summary, middle adulthood for women is a time of significant reevaluation and reinvention. Challenges include multiple roles, physical changes, and planning for the future. Significant numbers of middle adulthood women face caregiving stress, sexual dysfunction, and alcohol use disorder. Helpful therapeutic approaches, particularly when combined together, include the person-centered approach, feminist therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy. But there are also barriers to women in middle adulthood seeking treatment, and these include time poverty and the stigma of seeking mental health treatment. Finally, cultural considerations include significant variation in when women are considered middle-aged, the focus on youth and youthful appearance made in some cultures, and differences between cultures in what generativity means. We would like to thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and we appreciate the time that you took to learn with us.